Profit has played a massive role in creating wealth. Well, I don't want to preempt your answer, but it's now seen as inappropriate by a lot of people, painted in our universities as inappropriate.
Well, and this does beg the question as to what wealth creation itself is. And if we define wealth as the goods and services that lend to a higher quality of life, a higher standard of living, the notion that the mere accumulation of capital becomes a rather silly definition. Most everybody would rather have 1 million US dollars to buy goods and services than have 10 million Zimbabwe dollars to buy goods and services. So the goods and services with which we can transact, trade with one another, and experience has a lot more to do with how we actually define a real standard of living than just merely monetary units. But justice is a moral concept, and just exchange is a moral concept. And when we look at profit, where it is coming out of just exchange, we are creating two winners in each transaction. Yes. The anti-profit school of thought comes from a zero-sum fallacy that views one person getting ahead and another person losing, and therefore doesn't see it as morally just. That yes, there was one winner, but there was also a loser, and so therefore some injustice must have happened. The types of profit I am after is when a wage earner is profiting by getting paid for work, and the person paying him is profiting from the benefit of their services, and they're both happier for it. And the customers of the business are happier for it. And the various stakeholders have all benefited. Now, one can regret a transaction later, but all we need to do is obsessively focus on freedom of exchange, not compulsory exchange. And what we have done is set the conditions for a lot of people to be much happier as different levels of profit are obtained. And this basic economic concept, I think, is too often ignored. And profit gets demonized without understanding that profit is generally achieved from voluntary transaction between two different actors that are both profiting, albeit in different ways.
It's also fair, surely, to say as well, that it's profits that you tax in order to ensure a degree of justice for those who are marginalised or can't work or are in awkward circumstances. Government does have a role to play, but it doesn't create wealth. It's dependent on other people creating profits. And very often the people who are most against profits are, in fact, the people who are saying the government should do more for me.
That's exactly right. And that's one of the points I was making earlier about the testimony of 20th century history, that countries that focused more on the distribution of profits or redistribution of profits tended to be much poorer countries and had much less resources to help the poor. And countries that focused on more profit generation and productive activities had a lot more resources with which to help the poor. But nobody who believes in helping the poor can believe in doing so without profits. There has to be some gains from which the poor are being aided. And the debate about the distribution of those profits never changes the presupposition that there are profits to see the gains provided for in society. Now, within that debate, there's a school of thought about what the equitable distribution ought to be and who the decision makers ought to be and the role of private property. And I have strong feelings about all those subjects too. But the point you make is the sort of first one that I think people have to understand. There is no mechanism for aiding the poor if we have demonized the profits that are necessary to improve the overall well-being of society.